What a hypocrite. When I was rocking the FM back in the day and I'd hear a fellow jock do a "this day in history" bit, oh my God, I'd roll my ears and think, what a lazy I mean, never has a listener said, "Oh, please read more dates to me. History turns me on." At least in the boring way they do it. I'm Jeff, the radio DJ dude, and on offer exactly that, a fun history bit, but one that we're going to automate and use AI voices in order to whip out about 30 custom voiceovers in under 5 minutes. So if you're hungry for a little hypocrisy, well, I'm serving it up hot and fresh.
We are on the air.
Yeah, I get it. I just condemned a staple for radio jocks all over the fruited plain. For some reason, there's two bits jocks love: birthdays and this day in history. And I get it. For one, they're really easy. In the old days, the AP would provide these, printed up and ready to rip and read. But unless you're putting your own fresh, fun spin on this bit, it's tired, it's cliche, it's old, and it's just a time waster. You're not doing your listeners a favor by not infusing this with your own personality. So with that being said, we're heading down a new path to create what I think is kind of a fun, fresh take on a very old bit. And the way I use this history segment on my all 80s flamethrower, XXX80s.com, I have modified it to this month in 80s history because it's just more manageable to tackle a month at a time versus a daily history segment at a time, which I do have some thoughts on at the end of this video on how to automate a daily history segment. But first, let's have you put your ear on this segment.
This month
in 80s history.
On September 20th, 1984, Miami Vice exploded onto the TV scene, bringing pastel suits, fast cars, and a whole lot of cool to prime time.
Back to more extreme 80s fun in 2 minutes. XXX 80s.
What I know about courage.
I think it makes for a perfect segment to use going into a commercial break, just like you heard right there. It's short, it's tight, it still communicates, what XXX 80s is about, all 80s all the time, and it does offer a fun little dose of 80s history. But a very small dose. We're not reading 5 or 6 of these stories. They're quick, they're tight, they're in, they're out, and they give you another chance to reinforce your branding and your mission statement. At face value, they're perfect for any decade-based radio station, but if you wanted to zoom out, you could make this more of a generic offering, and it could roll on any station. Strap in, because there are 6 honking steps to pulling this off. Well, I will gently take your hand and walk you through each of these steps. They're not going to be a deep dive like we've done in the past, because I have covered a lot of these topics in great detail in past videos. So when we get to a segment that needs more explanation, I'll point you to a video to watch. Since automation is the backbone to this bit, well, we're first going to start our journey over in ChatGPT. And with any AI business, it all lives or dies with your prompt. The more you give the bots to work with, the more they give you back. So check out this prompt that I have crafted here. It's pretty deep. It pretty much covers everything we're looking for. And will this prompt produce some bang-up news stories? Well, I needed to do one more thing to help us with the back end, to help us with this spreadsheet file that we're ultimately going to generate it. So I updated it to add a second column to the spreadsheet. In addition to just the history, the news story, I wanted to create another column for the file name later on in the automation process. And here's that updated prompt. Thank you to the history-loving bots for producing this lovely spreadsheet, which will jump over to Sheets or any other spreadsheet editor of your choice. We're going to make sure everything looks good, and this is a really great time to read over each of the history items and make any tweaks in the text, because you still want it to sound natural, you want it to sound conversational. You can add punctuation in areas where you feel the AI voiceover needs to maybe slow down a bit, add some natural pauses. Okay, so we check the news story, and over in column B, we check out all the titles to make sure they fit. Now that I'm thoroughly full of sheet, we could pop over to 11 Labs to work on our AI voiceover. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to copy and paste a piece of text from that spreadsheet into the text-to-speech generator at 11 Labs. Choose the right voice that you want and hit generate.
In September 1982, the TV show Cheers premiered, inviting us all to the bar where everybody knows your name and turning Ted Danson into a TV icon.
If you don't like how the first take sounds, work with the settings to get a sound you like and then remember those settings because you're going to be using those during the automation process. Okay, now that you love your robo voice, we are heading over to make.com to craft our special history segment animation. Now, if this is your first time twinkling your toes in these waters, I definitely urge you to check out some of my past videos on this subject. I've gone deep in the past on how to use make.com to design your very own custom automation. So make sure you watch 1 or 2 of my past videos so you can get up to speed. But zooming out, this is what our automation looks like. The first step is we access that spreadsheet. So you have to tell Make where that spreadsheet is and fill in some other data right here. Step 2, you're creating a module to create a new document. Basically what this means, each row of your spreadsheet, each news story history segment will then be copied, pasted, and saved as its own document. Okay? Follow along for step 3. Now we're getting the contents of a document. We're basically getting the contents of the document that you just created and getting ready to send that to our robo voiceover artist over at 11 Labs, which is step number 4. You see right here the 11 Labs module. And within it, you are choosing the voice, which you've already demoed and you like. You're entering any specific voice settings that you landed upon during your testing phase. And also, you are connecting the Get Contents of a Document module to 11 Labs. That basically becomes your script that you're sending over to be recorded. Okay, with all that in place, our final step is this Dropbox module. After 11 Lab creates that voice file, it's going to upload it to a specific folder in your Dropbox account. Now there's other services, there's other modules you could use here if you don't want to use Dropbox. But to save you time in the future, I want us to zoom in on how we're naming these files. And the real cool thing about this module right here, we could append a new beginning of the file name to every file. So instead of, as you see here, I have SEPT for September. Don't do that. For more flexibility in the back end, spell the entire month's name out. That's our file name prefix. And in the center here, you're saying pull data from this random green box. Well, that data is coming from that second column of the spreadsheet. You remember when we asked ChatGPT to come up with a 1 or 2 word title for each news story? Well, it's grabbing that and making that the main file name, which is super cool. And then it saves all that into Dropbox. So with everything in place, we're going to hit run and we'll try a couple of these out just to make sure we're on the right path and they're sounding good. One reason I don't run all 30 files in one shot, I want to quality control as we go. I want to listen to like 5 or 10 files at a time just to make sure they all sound good.
In September 1980, the world was charmed by the TV debut of the Smurfs.
Because if I have to, make a minor tweak to the voice settings, I'd rather do that early on than have to rerun the whole automation scenario. So after me liking what I hear, I download all those files and then I bring them over to step 5, which is Audacity, because I want to run them through one of my custom audio processing macros before I import them to Radio-DJ, because running these dry, unprocessed files on your air would sound like absolute, that right there. Don't do that. Anything you put on your radio station needs to pop, it needs to stand out, it needs to make an impression and cut through the rest of the noise in this chaotic world. And some sassy audio processing accomplishes that. And if we look at one of my pre-built macros, I'm normalizing it, I'm hitting it with some EQ, some compression, I'm of course limiting it, and then I'm saving that out as a WAV file. But I'm doing that in a speedy batch function. It takes under 20 seconds to rip through all 30 of these files. And yes, my radio DJ dudes and sweet dudettes, these macros are available for your audio processing pleasure, and they're going to save you a ton of time too. So if you want these Audacity presets, you can go get them in my shop. And yes, that link is conveniently located right down here in the description. And I thank you so much for supporting me. And the final step happens over in Radio DJ or the playout software of your choice. Before we import all those voice tracks, we want to make sure to create a custom category for them. So for me, under voice tracks, the subcategory is 80s History VT. So I know that's voice track. Okay? Category's been created. Now we can import this folder full of history fun. And of course, I'll enter in all the proper track information in this window. But that's it. We're not going to enter any more track info at this point, because coming up, I'm going to show you a super speedy tip over in the database program, which will use some specific SQL code to modify the parameters of every one of these files to our liking. So hang on for that. But of course, the voice files aren't enough. You need some kind of feature or segment opener like I have.
This month
In 80s history.
And if you look at this, it's basically the opener and then a music bed for another 30 seconds. But I have my next start cue point right after the end of the intro voiceover. And that then will trigger the history voiceover. Now is actually a perfect time to tackle some scary coding nonsense. Let's jump over to MariaDB, Heidi SQL, whatever you want to call it. It's your database program where you have all your Radio DJ files. Right here, this is the list of all our voice track history files. But the one thing I didn't mention, and this is key, if we're doing a monthly history segment, well, how does Radio DJ know what voice tracks to play? Well, it obviously needs some extra data to tell it which file goes for which month. And what I'm doing, I'm using the label field in the track info as the field to enter the specific month that that history file relates to. So right here you can see the artist as the month, October, then you have the title, and then down here under label it says October. But remember when you imported all the files and I said don't worry about all that nonsense? Well, now's the time to handle all that nonsense. And we're going to do that with this SQL query right here. Now, don't be scared. This could be as simple as just copy and pasting, but you want to make sure you get it right. This is going to set the artist name and the label name to what you enter in here. For me, it's October. But it's also going to do two very important things. One, make all those files that we imported overlay files, which is key if we want to play them over another musical element. And two, I'm also setting the audio level to 1.1, which just gives me a little boost. But imagine if you had to do this by hand for every file. Doing it over in the database saves a mountain of time. And once you run this query, boom, you go back to the songs database and look at that. They've all been tagged appropriately. And if we pop back over to Radio DJ, let's open one of these babies up and look at that. All the track info has been updated. It's an overlay file. And over in the Q editor, here we go. Levels 1.1. Let's play this one.
October 3rd, 1983. The first ever Motorola Dynatac cellular phone call was made, ushering in the mobile phone era. So that's who to blame.
This may be a glitch on my end, but I noticed that the next start cue point alone was not triggering the next element. So I've moved the in cue point right next to the next start element. So I'm guaranteed a tight on-air execution. And speaking of on-air executions, no, don't bring the firing squad out. Let's jump over to our track rotations. I want to show you how you're going to pull this off. because, like I said, Radio DJ is choosing these history stories based on the month that they're connected to, if you're doing a monthly history bit like I am doing. Now, there is another way to pull off a daily custom history bit, which maybe, the bots will research and write scripts for 3 really short this day in history news items, and that could be sent to 11 Labs for the voiceover. That's a topic of another video. It's very doable, but way too much to cover in this little moment that we have together. So just bookmark that. Let me know maybe in the comments if that's something you're interested in. But let's finish this one up. How do you make sure the right history item plays for the right month? You use this SQL query right here. Bingo boobo. We break this down. This first loads your history opener, which you heard, this month in 80s history. And then this next part, this is where the magic happens, where it's saying, look to this subcategory where all the history voice tracks live, but only select the one, and see this gobbledygook code, that's basically saying that matches our current month. And you find that month in the label field. And there you have it. We'll run a test. Whammo. It works.
This month
In 80s history.
September 1989 marked the launch of the first Nintendo Game Boy in the US, revolutionizing handheld gaming and giving us all serious thumb workouts with Tetris.
More extreme 80s fun in 2 minutes.
Shall we play a game?
Triple X 80s.
1 in 3 adults.
For me, this just checks another box on how to deliver something that is 80s themed and that is mildly fun. I think it's the perfect kind of bit you'd want to use going into a commercial break because it's short, it's tight, concise, and it's mildly entertaining. And if that isn't something you'd want to rent a billboard for, then I don't know what you would. Triple X 80s, now mildly entertaining. Promotional perfection. And on this day in history, you can now write down, I watched a video that changed my life. Let me know if this is something you're going to embark on. I'd love to hear maybe if you spin this in a new direction. Well, tell us all about it. We're all learning from each other here. And if you mildly dug any of this nonsense, I would so appreciate a like and a subscribe from Sweet YOU. I'm Jeff, the radio DJ dude, and until our next little radio rendezvous, you keep rocking those mics all over the world.